Welcome to Checks and Balances. I'm Michael Vincent. This is James Blair. And this week, it's Economics Corner with Mike. We're talking recessions.
Okay. I am the referee for this podcast episode. If you have seen the video has gone for 3 hours, I have failed you and I've not kept Mike in check. If you've watched episodes in the past, you know he can waffle on about economics all day. Mortgage broker, this podcast is a pathway to you being able to be, was it Tony Alexander at some point?
No, I'd rather be that wizard from Christchurch who just hangs around, but I talk economics. Yeah.
Hang around high street. Yeah. So, the purpose of this episode, obviously we've got, off the back of COVID, we've got interest rates, we've got inflation, we've got wars overseas. There's a lot of things happening which is kind of coming home to roost locally.
Yep.
When we are starting to talk, when we're talking to people on the phone, giving advice that we're talking to people every day, people are starting to drop the R word. And I went, after the 5th call in a week, I'm like, Mike, people keep saying recession.
Yeah,
They're saying recession a lot. I'm like, Mike, you're the economist. Are we in a recession?
Yeah.
And it's, so coming back to the media episode we did, very interesting to see how quickly people can get disrupted by the noise. And the main thing we're going to link this all back to is decision making in the end, what you should do for your situation.
Yep.
But let's start, Mike, with what is a recession?
Yeah, cool. Just to paraphrase that, just to take you up on something there, I'm absolutely not an economist.
Disclaimer?
Yeah.
Disclaimer?
Not an economist,
Yep.
Just a mortgage broker here. No, hey look, so a recession is defined as 2 consecutive quarters of a decline in GDP growth.
Decline in GDP growth.
Yep.
Okay, it's not a decline in GDP.
No, so that would be a depression.
Are we in a depression?
No, we're just in a recession.
Okay,
so effectively what that means is you can be in a recession, but no, you're in a recession because you still got to hit the 2-quarter mark.
Cool.
Yep.
Quick 101, GDP.
Gross domestic product. It is the measurement of an economy or a country's output.
So we're producing stuff, somebody's buying it.
Yep.
That total number is either going up or going down or going up but at a slower rate.
Yep, correct.
Okay, and we think it's going to go up potentially but at a slower rate.
Correct.
Okay, so we're not in a recession?
We can't be.
Because we haven't had
2 quarters. Yeah.
Okay, are we going to head for a recession?
I'd say yeah, likely. Look, to be honest, a recession is part of a normal economic or business cycle, right? And these, depends who you talk to, but usually 5 to 7 years is your average cycle. Yep. Now, we have not had a recession for quite some time now. And that is because, one of the main reasons that has been is because the government has been pumping money into the economy to try and keep it afloat, keep things growing, and keep the whole thing ticking over.
Okay, so they've been trying to keep things ticking over, which might be alluding to why we might be heading for a recession.
Yep.
But let me ask, definitely not an economist Michael, why are we heading in this direction? What has happened that has got us to this point?
Cool. So usually a recession or a period of inflation, which kind of ties into a recession, is kicked off by a supply side shock. Now, what that means are that there is the factors of production are harder to come by or more expensive, or there are less goods in the economy, like a global pandemic which disrupts supply chains, a global pandemic which means that, no one can go into the factories to produce iPhones, cars, computers, whatevers. That's usually the catalyst for a recession. Now, what happens off the back of that is business confidence goes down. So when the market is on a bull run or things are on the way up, people get good jobs. They use those good jobs to get a good income. They use that good income to take out a loan to buy things. And when everything starts tightening, and let's say that the factors of production aren't there or things aren't going so well in the economy, maybe some people lose their jobs, or maybe some people are less confident about their ability to continue to get a good income. They will not continue to take out those loans and they'll start repaying debt. What that means is that businesses who are able to give out all of those good jobs will actually go, maybe we'll pull back on hiring new people, or maybe we might get rid of a couple of people or something like that. And that sort of causes a cycle where the economy starts to shrink in size or the growth starts to deteriorate.
Yeah, not necessarily shrink, but not grow at the same rate.
Yeah.
I think the point you made before is a really valid one. So when I'm going through risk profiles with clients, talking about investing their money, we go, how much of a drop are you comfortable with your money, going backwards by? And then I give the same spiel every time. Everyone on the team's sick of listening to it. Markets generally operate in 7-year cycles. There's 3 good years where things are going really well, 3 kind of boring years, and 1 bad year. Now, that last time where we had the bad year, 2008.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not that great with math, but 2008 plus 7, it's been a little bit longer.
Yeah.
So it's been a really long time since we've seen a downturn in markets.
Yep.
So, Mike, so you think a recession is likely? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and I actually also, and this is probably going to get us some downvotes, but that'll happen.
Haters gonna hate.
Haters gonna hate. Look, a recession isn't necessarily a bad thing for an economy. As labour markets tighten, as growth slows, as the economy generally slows down a bit, companies that don't make economic sense or have poor business practice will fail. That creates opportunities in the market for either established players or for new players to come into the industry and create new businesses that do make sense and are better at employing people. The other real, side note there is if a company liquidates, they'll have to sell all of their, like a manufacturing plant, if they liquidate because they're crap, they'll have to sell all of their tools to make the cars or whatever they're making, which means that other people can pick that up at a fire sale. So there are sort of positive externalities to that. The other thing to keep in mind is that, when the economy is on the way up and the labour market is really hot, you might have employees that perhaps aren't that great, but having some employee is better than having no employee. An economic downturn actually means, hey, we probably don't need that guy anymore, we can get rid of him. So some low performing companies and people can sort of be exited.
It's getting dark.
But this is a natural thing in an economic cycle, right? The circle of life. Because let's look at the flip side of that. Let's say there is no economic downturn. Investors play a really important role in the economy because they allocate where they deploy their capital to grow it, right? Which means they are looking for a good return, they're looking for good companies. If they can just rely on the government pumping money into the economy constantly and every company is going to grow, they stop making rational decisions about investing. They will just put money anywhere because it doesn't matter, there is no risk. So once investors stop fulfilling that role in the economy, you start to get a really bloated, sort of lazy, for lack of a better term, economy where some companies really don't make sense. Let's look at money as a strategy and look at WeWork. How much sense did that make? Maybe not too much. You can see
Great series, though.
real examples of that in the economy where just too much money creates a distortion.
Yeah, Jared Leto, 50 looks amazing.
I know, it's crazy.
I must say.
Yeah.
Can we give the other perspective? Because our fearless leader, Matthew Harris, he comes and talks to me at least once a day and goes, James, this is what I think is going to happen.
Yeah.
You give me your perspective, Mike. He thinks borders are going to open up, people are going to come into the country, money's going to flood in, there's going to be new opportunities, things are going to get moving, house prices are going to start going up, money will start getting circulated around the economy, COVID supply chain issues might sort themselves out, maybe the Russia-Ukraine conflict, or see the optimist in me, the Russia-Ukraine conflict, everything will get worked out there, and then we're back into it, we're back printing money and things are going well, and how likely is that scenario?
Well, it's likely if the government just starts printing money again and lowers interest rates, it'll just keep kicking off. But I think it's more important that the government isn't always the one that controls this, because it is the Reserve Bank, and the Reserve Bank is independent of the government for this exact reason. If the government controlled the Reserve Bank, then we would always have this sugar high because they run on a 4-year cycle and they need to be re-elected. The Reserve Bank doesn't have to be re-elected. They can make tough decisions for the economy that are better over the long run.
I can see some people being like, that's not true. But so we've talked about the scenario where maybe this kind of all washes itself out, and it's plausible, right? It's to Matt's point, as a property investor,
as the market contracts and things are on the way down, what happens? Everything goes on sale. Asset prices are decreasing, right?
You're jumping ahead. You're jumping ahead. You're moving too fast.
Yeah.
We've got to get to the bit around what do people do when you're giving them the end already. Okay, so this is pointless now. All right, so recession potentially happening in the future.
Yeah.
You know, you go to the barbecue. Some people talking about it's the end of the world. You need to sell everything. Put the cash in the mattress.
Yeah.
Mike, what should people be doing at the moment with all of this chat around what might happen over the next little while?
Yeah, it really depends on your situation, what you can afford. You don't want to overextend yourself doing it during a time of economic downturn. You have to be really careful about that. However, like I sort of alluded to before, this is the time when things go on sale. Stocks are down, houses have plateaued out, and you're starting to see some bargains in the market. We don't advocate for trying to time the market. But if the Briscoes lady's saying everything's on sale, maybe now's the time to buy.
And if you are buying things from Briscoe during the week, what are you doing with your life? You have way too much spare money.
It's their famous red dot sale this weekend, James. Yeah.
So, really good point. Nobody is making huge amounts of money by getting the tail end of growth. Where people are really making their money and doing a really good job is they're blocking out the noise.
Yeah.
They're looking at their long-term financial plan and going, when I was planning for 10, 20, 30 years, was I expecting at some point that things wouldn't be rosy every day throughout that whole period? Absolutely, unless you're, absolutely detached from reality. You knew there were going to be the 3 good years, 3 boring years, 1 bad year. So, what happens in the short term, to Mike's point, you don't want to overstretch yourself. I think there's certainly been some Kiwis over the past 12 months that have maybe really pushed themselves in terms of their debt levels, maybe gone too hard on crypto or whatever it might be, and haven't really thought about their plan and where they're going. But if you've got a good financial plan where you're trying to achieve financial freedom, being able to travel, not being dependent on your job, trying to move up the property ladder in terms of where you're living long term, then this is where there's some really good opportunities. To Mike's point, if I'm talking to clients at the moment and they've got some money to invest, I'm not telling them what's going to happen tomorrow, because despite how smart I sound, I do not know what is going to happen tomorrow. However, what I do know is if somebody invests now, they're getting an 8% discount on the all-time high.
Yeah.
We are pocketing in that because it will go above the high. It might go lower, but we're benefiting in the short term.
Yeah, and I'm telling everyone to just throw it all in the crypto market, put it all on Luna, because that paid off for everybody. It's not often I get one back on the crypto people.
On the property side,
so
I was talking to this lady yesterday. She's got a very considerable amount of cash.
Yeah.
And got a good income. Could buy a house tomorrow.
Single?
Oh, you're in trouble. Got cash and could buy a house tomorrow, but they're not sure, Mike.
Yeah.
They want to wait. They're worried the housing market is going to drop further. On the property side, what would you say to someone like that?
Best time to invest was yesterday, right? Look, it might drop a little bit further, but again, it's the same story. These are long-term assets. Let's say it drops another 5% over the next 6 months. So what? You're holding this asset for 5, 10, 20 years.
So wrapping it up, the R word, very possible. Very possible that you'll see, I think 100% likelihood you will see that in headlines talking about recessions going forward.
Yeah.
But remember, a recession was always going to come. Whether it's now or even if things recover and it's in the future, it will come. And the opportunity is here. Firstly, making sure if you have a mortgage that you're talking to your broker, making sure that you've got a plan and you can deal with the short-term pain. But also, look at the opportunities, look at your situation, look at your plan, take advantage of them. We'll wrap it up right there. Thank you very much for joining us. Please subscribe, please review. See you next week.
Cheers.